Welcome to A Second Look. I'm Kevin Wilson, Ohio District President. This is my weekly devotion for our congregations based on the scripture passages from this past weekend. Our devotion this week is entitled, Hope from the Past for the Future. It comes from the epistle reading, Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 through 14. I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the whole imperial guard and to all the rest that my imprisonment is for Christ. And most of the brothers, having become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Members of Ohio District churches are looking for an infusion of hope. Society continues to move further and further from God. And as our culture withdraws from Christ, it tries to drag us with it. So it leaves us asking, how will God provide us with hope? Historically, one way God provided hope for his people was through the past. God would remind his people of his mighty deeds and how he delivered God's people in the past, and in delivering God's people, kept his mission of restoring all people to himself moving forward. This is most clearly seen in the Psalms. How many times do the Psalms make reference to the Exodus, to God delivering the children of Israel from slavery? This was a powerful reminder of hope that God had delivered his people in the past. He would care for them today during their trials. God is doing the same for us through Philippians 1, 12 through 14. The Apostle Paul was imprisoned for sharing the gospel, for speaking his faith. His life was truly in danger. Think about how this might have devastated the early Christians, how it might have stopped them in their tracks when it came to God's mission. Paul was the missionary to the Gentiles. He pioneered that mission work. Now what would outsiders think about Paul? Now that he's been arrested, surely this might discredit his message. And the loss of confidence among the believers, those who were inspired by Paul, how would they react? Apostle Paul said, God redeemed this situation. That instead of slowing the gospel, in fact, his imprisonment was advancing the gospel. And it was happening because other believers, brothers as they're referred to here in this text, took great confidence in the fact that Paul was imprisoned and yet the gospel was moving forward. What does this mean for us today? It means that in the midst of trials, it does well for us to look for how God is still working in the midst of those trials. God will continue his work of advancing the gospel until Jesus returns. And until then, we have the privilege of engaging and serving with him according to his will. And so, as in the midst of these trials, we'll continue to look for how God is moving his work forward. Until next week, the Lord bless and guide.